Thank you very much. Thank you. I think we can see the mic. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. It's exactly the way I wrote it. Very nice. First I want to say thank you very much to Nick Salmos for bringing me here. All this another activity here. But it's wonderful to be back in Australia. I've been here many, many times before, and of course I love this country. It's really always great to come back here again. And I have to tell you that it's also fun to do it right here in the gym. I thought that when I was told that I'm giving a speech here today, that everyone is going to exercise while I'm giving the speech. But I think we're going to let this slide one time. Okay, just hang out and do nothing. But anyway, my first exposure actually to Australia was when I moved to America in 1968. I met a guy, an Australian guy by the name of Paul Grant. And he was a power lifter. He bench pressed 500 pounds and squatted at 600 pounds. And he was unbelievably strong. And he was also known to be an alligator wrestler. So I thought that every Australian is a powerlifting alligator wrestler. Only to find out later on that Australia has regular people, different kind of people, like everywhere else. But anyway, so that was my introduction. And I tell you that every time I come back to Australia, I've enjoyed coming back. As a matter of fact, I won my last Mr. Olympia competition in Sydney, Australia. It was in 1980 at the Sydney Opera House, and it was really fantastic to be on that same stage where greats like Pavarotti and Frank Sinatra performed, and where Queen Elizabeth watched the opera there, and Pope John Paul held mass. So it was really terrific for a bodybuilder to be on the same auditorium, the same stage, the same opera house, and to win the competition. And of course, I've always loved coming back, and every time I come back, I love this place more. I remember in the beginning when I came back, I loved the miles of beaches that you have here, and then later on when I came to promote my movies, I loved the fans because they always received me with open arms, and my movies are always very successful here in Australia. And then when I became governor, I realized that Australia is as keen and as interested in protecting the environment as California was, and we worked together a lot during these times. So it was really terrific to see a country that is so interested in creating a renewable energy future. So I love that. And today, of course, I love being here and traveling around the country to do speeches. Motivational speeches. I never thought I'm going to do that. But it is fun to do that and to be here. And I want to say also thank you to Jamie McIntyre, who was one of the other promoters that brought me here and to do his summits and his financial summits, and they were all fun to do. But the thing that I always do is before I hold a speech, I always do an informal poll to just find out a little bit of what the people want me to talk about. Because you never know. And it was really interesting that when I took a poll of this audience here. I mean, it was 40% of the people wanted me to talk about politics and policy. But 50% of the people wanted me to talk about bodybuilding and about show business. And the other 10% just wanted to have their money back from my movie Hercules Goes Bananas. A movie that was done 40 years ago, come on. But it is interesting that wherever I go today, and I think it has to do with the success that I've had in life, that wherever I go today, people always ask me, what is the secret to success? And I always tell them, I said, there's a short version, which is you have to have a 22-inch biceps. And you have to be able to kill predators with your bare hands. Right? And you have to be able to travel back in time and save the human race. It's another one of those busts. And of course you have to have this charming Austrian accent. So those are the four things. But this is the short version. But since we have a little bit more time today, we can give you the longer version. And the reality is that I believe always in certain rules. And those rules are the ones that have made me successful. And I want to talk to you today about 5 rules that were absolutely essential. I believe that those rules can apply, of course, to almost anyone and everybody. You don't need to have to be a champion bodybuilder or to be an action hero or to be governor of the great state of California, not at all. And if you want to excel in whatever you do, these rules are for you. First, I want to just say that I always have been very intense. I always have been very hungry. I always wanted to be number one. I always wanted to be on the top. I always wanted to climb and climb. I never had enough. Too much was never enough. I did not believe ever in just getting by. Now, I have nothing against people that just want to get by, because I think there's many roads to happiness. But I think that you all seem to be very hungry to be successful. I think for you, those rules that I have will apply. The first and the most important rule that I want to talk to you about is which I believe always very strongly, is having a vision. I believe that if you have a vision, it is so much easier to accomplish anything in life. If you don't have a vision, you just float around. There's really no purpose there. I mean, you can have the best ship in the world. You can have the best cruise liner in the world. But if the captain does not know where it's going, that ship is just going to float around in the ocean. It's never going to end up anywhere. And so this is why it is important that we have a direction and that we know exactly where we're going. Or I could think about is, of course, when I grew up, was getting out of Austria. That's how I created my vision. Because I grew up after the Second World War, and in Austria there was depression, there was no food, there was hunger, starvation. Then everyone was drunk all the time because they were losers. They lost the Second World War, thank God they did. But that did not create a good atmosphere to grow up in. And of course it was small and it was kind of restrictive, and I just could not wait to escape from that place. I couldn't see myself to live in Austria and to live the regular life, and to work in a factory, to work in a farm, or even to follow my father's footsteps and to become a police officer. I couldn't see that either, even though that's what my parents wanted me to do. They wanted me to become a police officer like my dad, and marry a girl by the name of Heidi, and then have a bunch of children and run around like the Von Trapp family in the Sound of Music. But that was my parents' plan. That was not mine. And one day I was very fortunate that in school I watched a documentary about America. And I found myself right away. I knew right away that I wanted to move to America. That's where I belong. I loved the documentary because America, it looked so huge. Everything was just gigantic. The skyscrapers, the bridges, the huge freeways with the beautiful cars on it, the jetliners, the movie stars, Muscle Beach. Everything about America was just so fantastic. So from that point on, every time I saw a book about America, I read it right away, and so looked at the pictures. Every time I saw a newspaper article, I read it about America. Anytime there was a story in a magazine about America, I read it right away. The movies, American movies, I fell in love with and watched them over and over. The question was just, how do I get to America? So I saw, by coincidence, a magazine that showed me the road, the path to America. It was a bodybuilding magazine. There was a magazine, on the cover was this huge muscular guy. It was Reg Park. And Reg Park was on there in this Hercules pose with a Hercules outfit, and it said, Mr. Universe becomes Hercules star. And I bought the magazine right away, and this magazine I read as quickly as I could, and it was just fantastic. I mean, to read how this guy trained 5 hours a day, grew up in Leeds in England, also under poverty, and then he won the Mr. Great Britain competition, and then he won the Mr. Universe competition, and he kept training and training and training, and eventually he won 3 Mr. Universe contests, and he ended up in Cinecittà in Rome playing Hercules. And there he made millions of dollars, and with that money he bought himself a gymnasium chain, and he became a very successful gym owner in South Africa. I read this, and I became more and more certain about my own future. I felt like that Reg Park has laid out basically a blueprint for my life. I wanted to become another Reg Park. I could see very clearly in my vision to stand on that stage like Reg Park in London, to win the Mr. Universe competition, and then to move to America, then to get into movies, and to become rich and famous. That was my vision. I was so happy, I can tell you. I was so happy that I knew where I was going. All of a sudden, there was a purpose there. I knew what I should work for. From that moment on, everything that I did, no matter how hard I had to work, no matter how much I had to struggle, I just felt so happy. I felt so happy, and it was a joyride, the whole thing. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I feel the simple truth is that if you don't have a vision, if you don't have a purpose or passion, or if you don't have your plan laid out in front of you, you just drift around with no purpose and there's nothing. And you will never end up anywhere. This is why I always stress to people, I said it is so important that you know exactly where you're going, because then life becomes fun. And you can see, when you look at the statistics all over the world, but one specifically in America, you can see, the latest study shows that 74% of the people in America don't like their jobs. They don't like the job, they would like to switch it if they can. That means only a quarter of Americans are really happy with their life's work. And those kind of numbers are very similar in Germany and in Austria and in other places too. People are not happy because they don't really know why they go, where they're going, and why they're working, why they're struggling, and all those things. Now this is why I think it is so important that we have a very clear vision. I always had a great time no matter what I did. I always had the greatest time, even in my pumping Arnold days. In the gym, people ask me all the time, why are you smiling all the time? Why are you so happy? Boy, besides that I had a great body, of course, I told them I smile because I know exactly where I'm going. They said, yeah, but other people maybe know too where they're going. I mean, look at the depressed they look at this tower, look at the face, and they're miserable that they have to work out all these hours a day. Because you train 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day. You lift 50 tons of weights, and you're happy. And I told them, I said, well, because I know that every rep that I do, every set that I do, every weight that I lift, is one step closer, takes me one step closer to achieve that goal and to make my dream become a reality, which is to be on that stage and to win the trophy and to win Mr. Universe. So I couldn't really wait to do another 1,000 sit-ups. I couldn't wait to do another 500-pound squat. I couldn't wait to do more bench press or to do more curls. I couldn't move my arms anymore. I couldn't wait for that moment because I knew that I'm getting closer and closer with each day of training to become the Mr. Universe. And so this is such a great feeling when you have that. I mean, when I lifted, I didn't just feel like I had the dumbbells in the hand. I felt like I had the trophy in the hand and lifted the trophy over my head every single time when I lifted. So that's what helped me so much. But it wasn't just in bodybuilding that vision helped me so much. It was also in the movies. When I did action movies, the kind of stunts that I had to do over and over, they were dangerous stunts. I got hurt many times. It was an agony, but I didn't care because I knew I always saw the finished movie, and I always saw the thousands and thousands of people around the world that really would get off on those movies and get entertained by those movies. So this is why I didn't really care. I remember there was one a particular movie, there was Conan the Barbarian. There was a scene in Conan the Barbarian where I had to crawl on all four, with the sword in front of me, holding the sword in front of me like this, and to crawl on all four over rocks and gravel. And I did 10 takes. And after 10 takes, my knees started bleeding and my elbows started bleeding. And it started really hurting. And the director came to me sheepishly and he said to me, he says, Arnold, do you mind to do one more take? I need a close-up as you crawl, it's 30 feet. I need a great close-up of your face. And I said, no, I don't care. He says, well, I don't want to abuse the relationship here. He says, because I can see you're bleeding already and you're hurting. And I said to him, I said, don't worry about that. He said, what do you mean don't worry about it? I said, because I don't care about the bleeding and about the pain, because I see the finished scene. I see myself in a movie already, sneaking up behind Thulsa Doom, the main villain in the movie Conan the Barbarian, that killed my parents, that killed Conan's parents. I was sneaking up behind him with my sword and then rising up behind him and cutting his head off. Getting finally revenge for killing my parents. I say, I see that scene and I think the people are going to scream when they see that scene, so we have to do the scene perfectly, and so therefore if I say I have to go up and down here and do the same scene 50 more times, it doesn't matter to me because pain is temporary, but the movie is going to be permanent. So see, again, it helped me with my vision. over and over, to me, to see the finished product is always what motivated me. This is why the rule number 1 is discover your vision and the rest will follow. Now that leads me to my second rule. Never ever think small. If you're going to accomplish anything in life, you have to think big and you have to shoot for the stars. The biggest challenge that people have is that they think small. And the reason why I think people think small is because they really are afraid to shoot for a big goal, because they feel like if they shoot for a big goal, then the chances of failure is very high, which is true. But so what? Why be afraid of failure? Only a failure if you fall and you don't get up. But if you get up, you're not a failure. I mean, everyone, it doesn't matter if it's in sports or if it's in a job or if it's in a relationship, whatever you do, you're going to fail eventually. There's no such thing as going through life without failure, so you might as well just take that. And how far can you fall? Only to the ground. I don't care about failing. I always get up. You know the word, I'll be back, right? You all know that? That's exactly what I say to myself if I fail and if I fall. So this is why it is so important that we have to go and shoot for big goals. In German, of course, there's a saying, wenn schon, then schon, which means that if you do something, then go all out and do it well. So this is exactly what I did with everything. I remember in bodybuilding, I didn't just want to be a bodybuilding champion. I wanted to be the best bodybuilder of all times. I wanted to have the biggest muscles of all times. I wanted to have the most definition. I wanted to win the most trophies, the most world championship titles. I wasn't happy with anything less than that. And the same as in movies. I didn't just want to be in movies. I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be a leading man. I wanted to have above the title credit. I wanted to be the highest paid actor. I wanted basically to be another John Wayne or Clint Eastwood or something like that, right? Why not? I said to myself, the same is in politics. When I jumped into politics, I couldn't see myself running for city council or to be Mayor Schwarzenegger. No. There had to be Governor Schwarzenegger. And it wasn't just any governor, but it was governor of the greatest state in the United States, California. See, I always was shooting for the top. That's what I was interested in. Let me give you an example of thinking big. When I became governor, I wanted to redo the infrastructure in California, because America has been living off infrastructure that was built in the 50s and 60s. And I thought it was about time that we upgrade. I mean, we haven't invested in our new roads, or in schools or in universities the way we ought to. But in the meantime, the amount of cars have quadrupled since the 60s. So therefore we need 4 times as many freeways, we need 4 times as many bridges and tunnels and on-ramps and off-ramps, but we don't have that. So I thought it is time to upgrade. I mean, when we talk about infrastructure, I wanted to not just to fix roads, I wanted to build giant, massive freeways on top of our existing freeways. I wanted to build the first high-speed rail. I wanted to build bridges and tunnels and all kinds of things. I mean, the things that we need in order to really move forward so people don't get stuck in traffic, because it's inexcusable that Californians get stuck in traffic or that they have to send their kids into overcrowded classrooms and schools, and that our universities are bursting at the seams, and that we have a sewage system in Los Angeles that is 100 years old. I mean, that's shitty. But anyway, the bottom line is, at first the legislators looked at me like I was absolutely insane. They said to me, what are you talking about that you want to rebuild the whole California? I mean, they wanted to spend maybe $5 billion in infrastructure, but that was petty cash for me. I want to do much better than that. You see, some politicians, they cannot think really big because they've never even been outside California, so they don't know what kind of huge infrastructure is all over America, or in Asia, for instance, in China, in Korea, or in Brazil, or in the European countries, or here in Australia. They haven't seen any of those, and of course other politicians simply don't have the vision of the future past the next election, which is a common problem with politicians all over the world. So it was my job as governor to motivate them and to get them excited, to show them in Los Angeles the bumper-to-bumper traffic and the overcrowded schools, and then eventually they started buying in and seeing my vision. And I kept pushing and pushing, and eventually Democrats and Republicans came together, and we invested $60 billion to to rebuild California's infrastructure. And now you see cranes everywhere. Now we are building those roads and the schools and university buildings and affordable housing and all of the things. And it's the biggest investment in our state in 50 years because we all thought big. This is why it is so important to think big, because this way we got the people's work done and the state benefited from that because of big thinking. And this is why I say to you, remember that. Don't think small, think big. That brings me to my third rule. Ignore the naysayers. I mean, you know that any time you have a big vision and a big plan and a big goal, that people are going to say to you, it won't happen. It's impossible. No. So I say to you, eliminate those words from your vocabulary. Eliminate it, I can't, no, and impossible. In each of my careers, when someone said impossible, I said, I hear possible. When they said I can't, I heard I can. And when they said no, I heard very loud and clear, yes. So that was simple as that. I remember very clearly that I always was a big believer in what Nelson Mandela said, because he said that it's always impossible until someone does it. And that's exactly the truth. When someone does it, then all of a sudden it's possible. If it's breaking a record in a sport or doing something unusual in business or so on. So just think about it. There's many times I would have really discontinued my career if I would have listened to the naysayers. I mean, my career would have been over a long time ago. Right away when I was 15 years old, I said I want to be a bodybuilding champion, and in Austria everyone said, that's impossible. That's not an Austrian sport. If you want to be a champion in Austria, you have to be a ski racer, or a bicycle rider, or a track and field athlete, or something like that. But bodybuilding is an American sport. Forget it. You would never be a bodybuilding champion. Then when I wanted to go to America, they said it's impossible. You have no money. You're all by yourself there. Yeah, sure. It's a crazy dream, Arnold. Forget about it. And then when I got into show business, it was the same thing again. After I won 13 World Bodybuilding Championships, I wanted to go do what Reg Park did, which is to go and become a movie star. So I met with agents and with studio executives and with managers, and guess what they said? They said, yeah, that's a good one, Arnold. You want to be a leading man? Are you out of your mind? I mean, look at the body you have. I mean, look at all those muscles. You look like a monster. That doesn't fit into any movie today. The new stars are little. Dustin Hoffman. That's the new star. Al Pacino. Woody Allen. Those are the new sex symbols. I say to myself, I cannot believe that. I say, I want to do Hercules movies. He said, no, forget it. It wouldn't happen. He says, you're 20 years late for that. 20 years ago they did Hercules movies. And plus your accent, it gives me a little bit the creeps. The goosebumps, the chills, you know, when I hear this kind of German dialogue and all this. And by the way, have you ever seen an international star that has a German accent? He says, Arnold, come on, get real. It's not going to happen. And plus your name, what is it, Schwarzenegger? I can see that already up there on the billboard. And people are going to storm the theater because they're going to be so excited to listen to Schwarzenegger or to see him. Look, you're a nice guy. Why don't you just forget about all this? Why don't you get the gym business? Get into the gym business or open up a health food store and get some little parts. You can get your little parts. No problem with that. You can play maybe a bouncer with that body of yours, perfect. Or a wrestler or something like that. Oh, no, even better, a Nazi officer. If your accent perfect. You can call the people at Hogan's Heroes, and then you can get you a great job or something like that. So this is what they said to me. And you know something? I didn't listen. Luckily, I did not listen. Because I knew that if I would work hard, that if I worked as hard as I did in bodybuilding, 5-6 hours a day on my acting, that I would be able to go and prove them wrong, that I would make it. And so I started taking acting classes and English classes, speech classes, dialogue classes, even accent removal classes. I ran around all day. A fine wine grows in a vine. The Germans have difficulty in the Austrians with the S and the W and the V. We get all confused with those things. So I practice. A fine wine grows in a vine. Right? There's the S, the W, and the V. And then the zinc is made out of zinc. Yeah, it is very important to pronounce all the things the right way. You know something? All this practicing in these acting classes and speech classes and doing all those things paid off, because eventually I started getting little parts on television, then eventually bigger parts. Then I remember Lucille Ball calling me in the gym and said, "Arnold, come in for a reading. I want to have you in my television show, a 2-hour television show, happy anniversary and goodbye." I did a 6-minute scene with her, with Art Carney, which was fantastic, where I played an Italian masseur. I mean, I had a German accent. No one knows the difference between those two accents. But I got this great job, and from then I got this guest starring role in Streets of San Francisco with Michael Douglas and with Carl Malden. And then from then on, it started happening. Pumping Iron, we started filming Pumping Iron. We did Stay Hungry, and then I landed the big role in Conan the Barbarian. And the rest is history. You know something? That as soon as we finished Conan the Barbarian and we won a promotion tour for the movie, the director said to the press, if we wouldn't have had Schwarzenegger with his big muscles, we would have had to build one. So all of a sudden, this big obstacle of this body was a big asset. You see what I'm saying? And then when the Terminator, James Cameron said that, you know, we were very lucky to have Schwarzenegger, because the "I'll be back" line became the most famous line in movie history because his crazy accent, he said. Because he sounded like a machine. That's what makes the Terminator believable, because Schwarzenegger sounded like a machine. You see what I'm saying? So all of those things that the naysayers said would be my liability became an asset. See, I did not listen to them, to the naysayers. And the same thing, of course, was also in politics. As soon as I jumped into the race and ran for governor, they say, "You're absolutely crazy, it will never happen, you're going to lose. It will be highly embarrassing." And the rest, of course, is history. 2 months later, I was governor of the state of California. So the point that I'm making is if I would have listened to the naysayers, my career would have ended when I was 15 years old. I would still be up there in the Austrian Alps yodeling. I would not be talking to you today. I'm talking to you today simply because I did not listen to "it can't be done," or "no," or "it's impossible." So ignore the naysayers. The fourth rule is work your ass off. Nobody ever stumbled upon success by accident, except maybe if you're the guy that found gold in California. They did. But don't ever think that you can be that guy. I mean, you never want to fail because you didn't work hard enough. I always believed in no stone unturned. Muhammad Ali, one of my great heroes, who had a wonderful line in the 70s, when he was asked, "How many sit-ups do you do?" He said, "I don't know, because I never start counting until it starts burning." Now think about that. He started counting his sit-ups when it started burning. Now that's what is the difference here. That's what makes a champion. And it doesn't matter in what area you're in, if you're in sports or in business or anything else. No pain, no gain. The bottom line is, no one of my rules will work unless you work your butt off. It drives me absolutely nuts when people say, "I don't have time to work out. I'm working so hard, I'm tired, I cannot work out." Now what a stupid thing to say. I've never seen that they don't have time to read a book, or they don't have time and they're tired, they cannot improve themselves in any way, physically or mentally. Or they cannot improve their business. They cannot read anything or learn anything, because they're tired and they're working so hard. In the meantime, the day is 24 hours. We sleep 6 hours, so we have 18 hours left. Now I know you're thinking, no, wait a minute, I sleep 8 hours, right? Or just sleep faster, okay? A little faster. And the bottom line is, when I came to America, I worked out 5 hours a day, and I did construction business. I was a bricklayer, and worked on that all day. Then I went to college and took business classes, and then took acting classes from 8 o'clock at night to 12 midnight every day. That's what I did, because I knew that the day is 24 hours and I did not want to waste one single hour. I believe of what Ted Turner said. Ted Turner is one of the great entrepreneurs that started CNN. He said, early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and advertise. That's exactly the rule. Just remember that. You can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. So you must work your ass off. And now the fifth and the final rule, don't just take. Give something back. Very important. Leave your mark in the world. I believe that we all have an obligation to do something for our community, something for our state, something for our country. I mean, we must serve a cause that is greater than ourselves. Because we all know that in the end we will be judged not by how much we make, but by how much we give. And so ever since I went to America and I was received with open arms, I felt obligated. I felt this urge and this responsibility to give something back in America. Because I know that everything that I have accomplished in life is because of America. If it's my bodybuilding career, my show business career, my political career, the wonderful family that I have, the money that I've made, everything is because of America. But I also have to recognize that America did not become the land of opportunity and the greatest country in the world by itself. That people in the history of America worked tirelessly. They worked very hard. People fought. People died to make this the land of freedom, the land of opportunity, and of liberty. And so now it is our time to do something about it and to give something back. And it has nothing to do with just America, no matter in what country you live. If you live in Australia, or in Japan, or in China, or in Austria, or in Italy, you've got to give something back to your country. You've got to give something back because there's so many people that need your help. As a matter of fact, Sergeant Schreiber, my father-in-law, that started the Peace Corps, Job Corps, legal aid to the poor under the Kennedy administration and Johnson administration in the 60s. He was the greatest public servant that I've ever met. And he was a big believer, and he always said that it's the number one privilege and the most honorable profession to be a public servant. He gave a speech at the university at Yale, a commencement speech, and he told the students, tear down that mirror. Tear down that mirror that makes you always look at yourself. And you will be able to look beyond that mirror and you will see the millions of people that need your help. And I always saw those millions of people. This is why I took every opportunity that I could to give something back. I became the international coach, weightlifting coach for Special Olympics. I started as the chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports under the Bush administration from 1990 to 1993 to travel to all 50 states in the United States to promote health and fitness for our youngsters. I started after-school programs for our most disadvantaged students, inner city kids, because we wanted to have them be able to say no to drugs, no to gangs, no to violence, and to say yes to life and yes to education. And then I started with the fitness crusade. But the more I did, the more I reached out, the happier I became. I remember that it was so wonderful, such a great feeling for me to give something back. I would rather go and play chess with an 8-year-old kid in an after-school program, or would rather go and play golf with a Special Olympian than to go down another red carpet of a movie premiere. Because to me it was so important to give something back, and eventually the joy of giving became so huge for me that I was literally turning away from my movie career. And I made a decision to run for governor of California. I remember when I finished promoting Terminator 3, there was the race, always at the governor's race in California. I jumped in there, and I tell you that even though everyone said to me, says, Arnold, you're crazy, don't do that. Not only did they think that I would not make it, but there were all my friends that said, you're insane because you're going to lose all this money. Arnold, you make $20, $30 million a movie, you're going to lose all of that when you become governor. They're going to pay you $187,000 that yearly salary. That's it. And all those hundreds of millions of dollars you're going to lose. But I said, I don't care. Because I knew that I was at this level. of success because of America, so therefore it was time to give something back to America. And I can tell you that those 7 years were the most exciting and the most rewarding and the most gratifying years of my life. I mean, to work all day and to solve problems and to serve the people was absolute heaven. It was the best job that I've ever had. And I remember that even though when it came to an end, the 2 terms came to an end because we have term limits. I knew that my job will come to an end, but my interest in serving the people never will come to an end. And this is why I continued with after-school programs. That's why I continued with my fitness crusade. That's why I continued with all the different programs with Special Olympics, including starting a Schwarzenegger Institute at the University of Southern California to continue to inspire students and leaders around the world to find solutions to complicated issues and to give back and to make the world a better place. So to me this was extremely important, and I was always inspired by heroes that made a difference in the world. I mentioned 2, Muhammad Ali and Sergeant Shriver, but there's others like Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, Mikhail Gorbachev, or leaders like Mother Teresa, or Chancellor Kohl, or Churchill, and people like that. There's a whole list of people like that. Those people had such an unbelievable and profound impact on the world. And I tell you something, that when you take the life, for instance, of a Gorbachev, just to take one, I mean, every time I meet this man, I'm in awe. Because here's a guy that rose from the bottom of the ranks of the communism straight up to the top. And then when he was on the top and he became the president of the Soviet Union, he became one of the most powerful people in the world, and he became the head of the Communist Party, he looked around and he realized that the system doesn't work. I mean, think about that. He realized that communism didn't work. So what do you do when you're at the head of the Communist Party and you realize that the system doesn't work? I mean, this is a dilemma, isn't it? But he, you know what he did? He started dismantling communism step by step. Think about the guts that it takes, the courage that it takes. I mean, Gorbachev has transformed this country with glasnost by giving his people for the first time freedom, and with Perestroika by reforming Russia's economy. He didn't wait for another president to do it. He didn't say, oh, this is terrible, the situation here. I don't know what to do about it and complain much. No, he said, if not me, who? And if not now, when? So what I'm saying is all of us need to embrace that kind of a spirit. We want to go and change the world. All of us need to create change, whether it is our neighborhoods, our schools, or our country. And I'm not talking as big as Gorbachev, I'm talking about just even something little. Each and every one of you can go out and reach out and help some kid read that has difficulty reading, or with math, or with something, or with some sports program, or be a coach in a local sports program of some sort. Or you can do something also big. What I'm saying here is let's not work only on me, but let's work also on we. That is the important thing. Because to lead a truly full life, you must give back. You must leave the world a better place than we found it. So those, ladies and gentlemen, and my bodybuilding and fitness friends, those are my rules of success. And I guarantee you that if you follow all of those rules, then you will be able to celebrate many, many victories. And you will leave your mark, and you will have a great legacy that you can be proud of. So remember again the rules, have a vision, think big, ignore the naysayers, work your ass off, and give back and change the world. Because if not us, who? If not now, when? Thank you very much.